Welcome everybody to Tarot Journeys with Guy. How's everybody doing? Really glad to see the response that I'm getting from launching this new channel and all the people that are coming and taking part and joining in. And one thing that I would really like is if people could leave a comment below what they'd like to see as far as readings or what you'd like me to address or your thoughts. I really appreciate all of the positive comments. So thank you so much. Today, what we're going to look at is the true nature of spiritual warfare, or the true nature of spiritual war, let's say. And it kind of leads from previous readings. The day before, we did activating your life purpose with the Zodiac. And previous readings as well, we kind of addressed the awakening and sort of these ideas, right? And so in that process, what I'm kind of trying to share a little bit is sort of like what the tarot cards spiritually represent, I guess, and what they're here to help us with. So this notion of spiritual warfare, this is an interesting thing, or spiritual war. And a lot of people see that we're sort of being embroiled in a spiritual war. I'm trying to find different ways of talking about it, but it's kind of obvious. I mean, one of the things that have come to the surface in the material world is this subversion, or turning what was once perceived as good, as turning it bad, and turning what was once bad into good. This kind of thing, right? Very obvious. Perverting nature is another one. The intrusion on the human mind is what's really brought it to the forefront. Now, within psychic work, spiritualism, this kind of thing, right? There's a kind of a lineage of thought, especially when it comes to sort of, I guess, more mainstream thinking, or like what's been brought out to the public. You know, Rudolf Steiner, 100 years ago, talked a lot about some of the ramifications of what they were engaging then, what the results would be 100 years from now, or in the near future, beyond his lifetime though. And in many ways, it was like he was preparing us with some of the ideas. Now, people have been acquainted with this, like he was a firm believer in natural holistic medicine, and the idea and the intention around like modern day vaccination was an inherent evil, in the sense of the people that were producing these things, the intention behind it was coming from a very strong materialistic, atheistic point of view. And just this idea that going back, he really kind of reinstated within the theosophical circles from that time period, and the esoteric circles, this idea that we're coming from a very long lineage, and that this spiritual war of the light and the dark, if you want to look at it that way, has been long-standing, and that in many ways that's what has brought this transmission to us. He also helped reinstate a little bit this, I guess, the mystical, spiritualized, esoteric form of Christianity. Okay, so when people refer to spiritual warfare, like, I mean, that's a strong premise within Christianity, but it's not the only religion that talks about this. All of the Abrahamic religions talk of this, the Jewish faith, Islam, and Christianity. They all come from the same root, right? In Hindu India and Hinduism, there is also this is a part of the religious philosophy. This idea of the dark and the light sort of being in this internal struggle. Buddhism also has sort of a measure of this, of cutting away the illusion. The idea is that it's long-standing. Within Egyptian mythology, there's, within the story of Isis and Osiris in the battle of Set, the brother of Osiris and Isis, and Set usurping and killing Osiris and usurping the ancient religion and perverting it and dementing it, and then Horus avenging him. But this is also a part of that context, right? So Edgar Cayce also is another one that talked especially from his transmedium readings that was recorded. He referred a lot to Atlantis and going back to the previous civilization, how the black magicians, the darksiders, are the ones that took over the ancient tradition, the tradition of the one, and demented it and perverted it and brought it to this civilization. Zoroastrianism also is very dualistic in its approach of the deceiver, Ahriman, and Aurora Mazda, the light god, the of truth and light, right? Squaring off and going through periods of time where one will sort of have control over the material world to the ultimate end. In so many ways, like that idea of the apocalypse, and especially and around astrology and stuff, comes from Zoroastrianism. It's kind of lost to us in some ways, right? But see, it's just to kind of give you this idea that this concept has been around for a very long time. Now, with tarot, like numerology, like astrology, tarot is a language. It is a way for the universe to express itself. Tarot is quite specific. It's a tool to help us connect to higher self and source, to sort of understand. It's like an intermedium, right? And it can help spell out like a language, each card being a letter in that language. Within the tarot is a hermetic understanding of not necessarily a negative creation, or that humanity is a negative creation, that this is a positive universe, and that it's been perverted, and that part of it is to sort of reclaim it. So within tarot represents many layers, or it kind of helps us understand that within our perception, in reality, within the universe, there are layers and levels, right? And so one understanding of the spiritual war is the inner battle with self. That is one of the prime battles. That's also an access point for the lower astral energies, the dark forces, let's call it, to enter into the situation. That's where, some of the teachings within religion, different religions, kind of talk about this. Now, within our world, many of us kind of accept it. We're under attack. We're under attack on every level. Primarily, it is spiritual, but we have to kind of take it first from that allegorical point of view, or that point of view that it's directing us towards the battle within. Now, if you look around, the way I see the world is that the reason why the world's so messed up, and has been for a long time, is because of that inner battle. All of us as individuals in groups are fighting within ourselves, and then it starts to become projected outward. This is where that moral imperative that comes from in the positive parts of religion, that teaches us the golden rule, for instance, or being good in some way, shape, or form, however that comes about, right? I mean, there's a lot of negatives. This is our time. This is part of that Aquarian impulse, that energy that's moving through civilization right now. It's our opportunity to release much of the fear-based systems that come from the ancient world, from the last 26,000 years, let's say. In a way, we are coming full circle. It's the beginning of a full cycle, a full cosmic or galactic cycle for humanity. In those cycles, at the end point, this is our opportunity for spiritual release, okay? Superstition is another thing that is just hinged people crazy. We've seen it with what happened with the lockdowns and the pandemic. And we're seeing it kind of unfold on other levels. But on a spiritual sense too, people have believed a lot of things that they are there as traps. Okay. What we're going to do today, this is kind of a little bit of a tarot lesson, but it's also going to give us insight. We're going to get a little bit of an insight into the sort of the true nature of the spiritual war that we're engaging, and get a little guidance and a little insight into what's going to help us in the coming days, in the near future. Keep us going, keep us empowered, to keep us in the light, because many of us are in the light, and those that are coming over to the light, how, this is going to help them. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw out in threes. So, but how we're going to approach it is through mind, body, and spirit. Okay, it can also be looked at as lower, middle, and higher. But we're going to look mind, body, and spirit. And we're going to draw out 3 cards. 3 cards for us, and 3 cards for what's going on in the world, and then a card in between that can help us interchange, I like to call it, but I'll show you, okay? So let's connect. Okay, so this is us at home. This is us as spiritual warriors, spiritual beings in the world. So this would be the light. This is the dark. This is what's against us on this side. So I guess this would be switched around. So this would be the left side. But yeah, let's not get caught up on the duality. See, one of the tricks in the spiritual path, in the lesson of life, is to see the true nature of duality, to see how that duality is, on one level, just an illusion, because what operates within all dualities is the unifying force, is the unifying factor of all things. It's kind of like this, little expressions like 2 sides of the same coin, that kind of thing, right? So, but this is what's up against, what's being thrown at us. This is almost like the dark siders on this side, and this is us. And like I said, mind, body, spirit. And so what we're going to do, and just like what I said here, how spells out almost like a sentence, right? We're going to use this middle card as a way of relating to this, okay? So within the mind right now, what the energy is kind of taking place sort of for us, and what we're being guided towards, is definitely like what I've been talking about on the readings here, is the strengthening of our resolve. And like strength is like this empowerment, but this is such a wonderful card, actually. Like when you really get into like the symbols of this card, right? She's taming the pride of the lion, the unchecked pride, the harmful pride, the tyranny of pride, with love, with unconditional love. But yet she's not backing down, and she's holding his mouth, which like this is supposed to be an actual lion, right? So, and then she's also like the magician card. She's got the infinity sign above her head. And in many ways, especially when we're talking about this, like spiritual warfare and awareness and consciousness, it's like entering into the higher mind, the unification of the lower and the higher minds, right? And so that is one thing that creates a firm barrier. Many symbols in this card. This is a great card of empowerment. So it's like empowering the mind, not allowing the mental toxin to enter. These guys, what they're doing, right? What they've been throwing at us is anything, like, I mean, for like the last century, they've been hooking us with the desire state. What we desire, right? And that lower aspect of the human condition. right? And the toxic aspect of it, it's not necessarily a positive thing. It's all material, right? Like the coins here, the pentacles represent the material world. And it's funny, it's like a duality, right? So they purposely continuing a duality within the desire state. Like, yes, you want this, no, you don't. Today you're for this, tomorrow you're not. Essentially, it's division, right? They're creating that division. And in some ways it's worked, right? But what is kind of getting us to sort of see past it in the mind is recognizing how there is a unity. I mean, one of the classic things is like, especially for us that have broken away from the mainstream media in some way, seeing like how when they project certain things about what's going on with people, they want to project a division. And they've created segregation in people's minds in some ways, the people that are hooked to it. But we start to recognize like this isn't the case. Like there's many examples of like major disasters that people have gone through. And then they show like the mainstream media shows the negative side of it, but they don't show the positive sides about how people come together. That people's faculty is actually to kind of unify rather than to divide. Right? This is one of those things, right? But it's the desire state. So it's like we have to check in the mind, right? So it's like they're hooking us like right away. It's like an emotional card, the cups, in a position of the mind, right? So it's mixing emotion with mental energy and upending everything in that sense, right? So it's like really confusing people. I mean, you can see it. People like in many ways, like mainstream society is very like surface level. And immediate needs are like always what they're sort of aiming for. Okay, so fortification of the mind, very key, right? But that's kind of where part of the attack is, in the mind, right? And that's a big part of like spiritual warfare, is the mental state. This is why in all major religions for timeless time, we've developed prayer and mantra. And in our time, since the 70s, 60s and 70s, and I guess it started earlier, but affirmations, this kind of thing, right? It's like we are being sort of reprogrammed on the other side of this. On the light side, we are being reformatted. The brainwashing, the programming, the social engineering has broken. And so what's being allowed in is the light, right? And then that's kind of a simple exercise of sort of like each day accessing the light, allowing it to come in love and light. So it's funny, we've already got it. It's like love versus not love, right? In the mind, it's that simple. So, I mean, a lot of things, like when you're feeling hooked by what you want, right? You have to check, where is this coming from? The universe always provides us with what we need, right? And I've talked a lot about this with many people, about aligning our wants and our needs, okay? The body. So it's interesting, we got two major arcana cards with us going through major lessons as spiritual beings, and perfect, because this is why we signed up for, right? Even though the physical world, like in our physical bodies, it seems like things are, and the physical world, right? Because the body also represents our physical world. Things are at odds, but there's a unifying measure coming back, right? And this card, like the Lovers, represents like the two that make one, right? And six is this card of balance, right? So it's like restoring balance to the physical form, restoring balance and that sense of unity. And this is like a holistic approach with anything that is physical, that things do exist on a whole, right? And that there is a natural order to things, like, and it's kind of obvious, right? You see, in like, so funny, the mind needs to be fortified and strengthened around unity and love in order to approach this dilemma in the world, right? Because, interesting, six. So what they're doing, six of wands, okay? So 6 centuries, 6 centuries, 600 years, 1400s, Renaissance, medicine, alchemy, many of these things were developed back in that time. And what they've been doing even in the last 6 months, last 6 years, let's say, because that also rings true, they've been upending all of the progress that human society has made, especially around the physical world and medicine and biology and science, right? And so yeah, very confusing, right? Creating the duality, creating this sort of like, and what they're really trying to do right now is create a situation where the entire world is impoverished, but not them. The elitists, the cabal, the groups that are vying for control and using us as pawns. Interestingly enough, with this card, the Lovers card, what stands above the Lovers is an archangel, is an angelic being. And it represents our connection to source, right? And that's exactly what we need to do in lieu of what they're throwing at us in the physical world. We have to draw on our spiritual energies to sort of face some of this, right? But in some ways, their physical plans, like this card here, is a victory. But we haven't been fully victorious yet, but they realize that at some point, they're not going to win this. Okay, actually, and it's a part of a universal sort of a plan, and they understand this on a galactic level or on a cosmic level, that there is a time for the dark age and there is a time for the light age. And what they're trying to do is continue the dark age as long as they possibly can. And it relies on us to submit and to volunteer, right? But they know that their plan isn't working. Right? They're still going to throw stuff at us. They haven't, like, some of these, this hasn't been fully taken yet. That's what this is kind of saying as well. These guys are on a ride and die motion. And that's what we have to face. But our spiritual energies, drawing in our spiritual energies into the physical world. This card is so funny. I mean, you got to look at it, right? Because it does. There's ships traveling in the back and forth. It's like riding the wave. This guy's juggling. And it's almost like what I'm seeing this dude is like they've implemented how the Tibetans talk about thought forms. They've created this trickster energy in the world, what this Two of Pentacles represents, that keeps throwing things back and forth. That might be actually like what we're dealing with, like with the internet, like this algorithmic programming, AI stuff. Man, just the asinine and ignorant and totally shut off and anti-human policies that these people are trying to push. They don't make sense, but they make sense when you start to understand their plan. Okay, and that's kind of what's happening. The physical plan is kind of is busting apart. They want people dependent on their system, though, right? And I think we know this. Okay, and then moving into the spirit. Into the spiritual realm, our spirit, right? So a lot of this stuff, like what we even talked about right now, this is what's hindering our spirit, that the fire. So Knight of Wands represents, well, it's fire, but it's like the motion of fire, the like movement, right? Moving in all directions, that side of us, that innovative side, that fiery side that can kind of jump out of our safety zone and do anything in a way. Humans are amazing, right? But yet, like our sense of divine light, of the divine fire within us, has been stifled because of their social engineering programs and the structure of the world and how we've allowed this stuff to come into our world. But I mean, this is what we have to sort out, is we have to take what is good with it and keep it, and not with what is bad. These guys, like, I mean, we've talked about this. It is a revenge trip that they're on. I mean, especially like any kind of leftist Marxist thinking, or it's like taking out the oppressor that has oppressed them, which they believe it's God. They believe it's divinity or what's been imposed upon them as a belief in divinity. A lot of them are inherently like atheistic. They just don't believe in anything, and they want to sort of destroy any remnant of that part of the world, right? That's a big part of it. So it's like spiritual anger. These guys are like dealing with that, and that's like a major theme. That's something that we have to face. But what we need to do is reinvigorate our sense of spirit, our sense of connection. It's just like reacquainting ourselves with our spiritual side is a really big part of it. And so it has to be done through love and compassion, not fear and guilt. That is for the previous age, the previous astrological age. This is a different age. Fear and guilt they don't motivate us in the same way. But this is what we're releasing, right? It comes from love. It comes from the divine source that is love. Okay? But that's what's needed. We need to do that. It's actually like, this is so funny, like burn away the past. Burn away all the things that are no longer serving. And I mean, I'm talking figuratively. But if you do it in a safe place where, it's contained and you can release things through fire or water. But this is talking about fire, right? It's like connecting to that part of us, that energy right now, and the positive side, the healthy side of it, to reinvigorate our sense of spirit. Humans are spiritual beings. This is our purpose, is to be here and to deal with this, right? So, okay. So it's interesting, right? This kind of shows us a dynamic in what's going on in the world. And it really has a lot to do with just being able to sort of be in the middle with what is being divided right now. They've divided people, a lot of people in their minds. Those old divisions still exist. That's what people have to understand, that's on one level an illusion. We can sort of override that. Humans are unique, every single one of us. Or every group is unique, every culture, every community. But when you get down to like the individual level, that's where you really see the magic. And when you have individuals that are awakened and empowered, and it's beautiful, it's wonderful. And those groups, when they come together in a healthy way, it's a wonderful thing. It's amazing. That is humanity. That's where we want to get back to. So the true nature of the spiritual war is to end the duality. Prayer and meditation. This is one of the things. Prayer, when I talk about prayer, it really relates to having a personal connection to divinity and having a dialogue with it. Now, meditation is silencing the little voice so that you can hear. Simple. Silence, right? Silence really helps. Okay, I think that's kind of helpful. Let's draw one more, see what else comes up. The spiritual war. Before one becomes a spiritual warrior, it's funny how this is coming up, right? Because in a way, to end that battle within us, we have to take on a bit of that energy. But we also have to be the seeker, which is kind of like what the Page of Wands talks about. We do have to seek in our world what is going to serve us, how to train this, how to sort of what's going to help heal what we're going through, right? We do have to sort of take charge of this and kind of take some of those first steps and move out, right? But this is part of a reignition of the inner light, of the inner fire within us. And part of that is accept that the physical world has to be this way, like what the reverse 10 of cups or reverse pentacles talks about the structure of the physical world, the human family, right? In order for it to move back towards an age of light, it has to heal itself. It has to reckon with, there is a reason for everything. The time of darkness brings upon the time of light, and vice versa. And it's really just how you register it. But if humanity has been hurting for a very long time, then especially for those that have been awakened and have healed somewhat, or can see a positive, then it's worthy. It's worth healing, because we will get through it. We will switch this around. Right? Many of us have family issues. Don't run from them. Deal with them. Drop it. Drop the baggage, face it. And when I say drop the baggage, drop the personal, taking things personally, I guess. But it's like we have to face this stuff. The other thing is getting the heart and the mind aligned. Don't let the energies of fear and anger hit you right now, because it's like they've turned up the volume on that. Get off of mainstream media, period. If you're somewhat even like remotely, just get rid of it. That you don't need it anymore. It's a habit. But it's like getting rid of all of the mental toxin that's there, right? There's avenues in our world, whether it's on the internet or whether it's out in the actual world. That's what they want us to seek right now, okay? And like get into a meditation. A daily meditation can be really helpful. I would do a silent meditation, especially if you're used to doing guided meditations, but do both. Get into silent sitting though. It's great. Yeah, and it's just getting clear with ourselves is really more what the key is. That's pretty awesome. We're probably going to do a few more of these. We're going to keep checking in. This is just, we're building up, right? And we're just kind of exploring what we need to look at right now. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Remember, leave a comment. Tell me what you'd like to see in future episodes. Please subscribe, hit the like button, share this video, and many blessings. Take care. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.